Hi everyone, Mustany Stash Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Grizzly Bear album, Painted Ruins. Grizzly Bear, New York indie heavyweights. This is the group's fifth full-length album, I believe. They put out a set of very excellent albums in the mid and late 2000s, starting with the very folky, beautiful, detailed, and spellbinding Yellow House. And then from there, they went on to a much poppier, refined, and direct sound on Vikatamest. Then in 2012, the band followed things up with the record Shields, which showed them stripping back their lavish production a little bit, sticking more to drums, guitars, vocals. The songs were a bit simpler, not quite as colorful, but the tunes were certainly admirable. However, at the time, the record did strike me as being a little too uniform, and kind of like they were stylistically repeating themselves a little bit. Now, it's been 5 years about since the release of that album, and things have been pretty silent on the Grizzly Bear front, with studio material, with solo material, and then suddenly the band pops back up on our radar with a series of very slow-burning singles in promotion of this new album over here, pretty much all of which left me kind of cold or just scratching my head. I was kind of hoping these tracks would grow on me in context of the album. Certainly the aesthetic, the sound, the vibe of the record is impressing me a bit more than Shields did about a half a decade ago. There's much more sonic depth to this album. The guitars ring out very beautifully, are drenched in atmosphere as much of the instrumentation in the mix is. The boys' vocal harmonies are deep, they're resonant, they're layered very nicely and twist together, and there are all sorts of very washy, glossy synths in the mix too. It's a very, very spread out panoramic sound. And I'm happy to see this kind of sound play return into Grizzly Bear's repertoire because that's kind of initially what attracted me to the band in the first place. But there's so many tracks here in the track list that are hitting me and just still feeling like they're cold as ice. And for a while I just could not put my finger on exactly why, because it certainly sounds like a Grizzly Bear album. But as I got more and more familiar with some of these tracks, I just kind of left myself leaving them wondering, where the hell are the songs on this thing? Because some of the material here just does not have a strong tune to it or a strong sense of structure, and there's no amount of lavish instrumental color that can make up for that. Because without a strong defined structure to hold all of this color together, you might as well take all of these deep purples and neon pinks and baby blues and trident greens and just violently swirl them all together until they become, I don't know, this hideous dirt color, which pretty much explains the opening track to a T. I was equally underwhelmed by the lack of a compelling song on the song Morning Sound, which lifelessly plods along with this really drab, indie rock groove that is so boring. As if this groove is somehow a replacement for a solid song idea. I mean, it's a slight improvement on the opener because it has a pulse, but why is it so goddamn loud? It's not like the instrumentation is really distorted or blaring or anything. It just feels like everything is so horribly compressed. The drums, the bass, the vocal harmonies, everything sounds really boomy, which unfortunately saps away the dynamics that I think makes most Grizzly Bear tracks work, makes them captivating to listen to, which is kind of weird. I never thought I would ever hear a Grizzly Bear album with quite this much compression on it. However, I could still see that on this project the band was going for something a bit more cerebral and spacey and experimental and psychedelic too. It's like they wanted to deliver a series of songs that were a bit more, I don't know, loosely defined and repetitive, something the listener could really kind of get lost in, which when I think of the band going in that direction, I kind of like the idea, and I think if there was an indie band that could pull that off, it's certainly them, especially since Grizzly Bear does typically drum up some really beautiful sounds on their albums. It's usually so easy to get engrossed in just the sound of their records because it is really blissful and warm and enveloping. The issue is the band doesn't always pull it off, which makes the album have a sort of rough start, or leads to cuts where it seems like they weren't completely sure as to what they wanted to do, like the song Systole, which is a kind of spacey acoustic cut that sounds very pretty, but the band never really put a proper ending on it. Or the track Cutout, which is another weirdly structured song that features this interesting build-up to the midpoint where the band sort of crashes in with these heavy, very shrill guitar chords that are as sharp as a brick flying through a bedroom window. Those kind of beat your head in for a little bit, and then the song just sort of fizzles out, trails off into nothing. But weirdly enough, it's where the band was really falling short of their target that kind of illustrates illustrated to me what exactly they were going for and made me appreciate the moments on the record where I felt like they were doing it well, or where they were sort of dropping little hints on the album, like on the song Four Cypresses, where for whatever reason the mantra of "it's chaos but it works" sort of pops out on that song multiple times, almost like Daniel Rawson is like making a statement about the album itself. And the album's own title seems like a reference to the writing process of it, like the band was going into these tracks with these sort of tattered and loose bits of song ideas, and they sort of just heavily painted them with instrumental color. Sometimes it doesn't really matter how intensely the band paints these ruins, though. A lot of the time it feels like these tracks are just kind of delivering a very slow build-up whose only purpose is to reach a crescendo or an intensity point at the very middle of the song, only for it to just disappear and evaporate slowly before the ending comes. Still, there are moments here where the band digs up gold in the midst of their excursions into more abstract territory. The song Three Rings, I love the momentum of this track, the airy instrumentation, the kind of scattered drumming. It's tense and beautiful. At the 3-minute mark of the track, the song kind of hits this point where the instrumentation starts ascending and Ed delivers this beautiful lead vocal melody. Don't you ever leave me. The song Losing All Sense probably has the most traditional structure on the entire record, the most that the band sort of shows a pulse in the track listing here. I think this song could have easily been slipped into the Vacademus track list if not for the fact that there are these passages in the track where it's almost like the instrumentation melts away a little bit into this swirling palette of vocals and guitar arpeggios. It's very spacey, it's very dense and heavy. And the song Aquarian, while it is another one of these cuts that sort of hits an intensity point in the middle, it is like weirdly jammy. It kind of has this heavy, somewhat fuzzy bass. The drums, while they are scattered like they are in many other cuts here, they seem like a little bit groovier, a little bit more intense. I feel like I'm listening to an instrumental off of a progressive rock album out of the 70s. If it weren't for the keyboards sounding so washy, I wouldn't think this was a contemporary piece of music. Like if those keys had more of like an electric piano or an electric organ tone to them, like damn, this would have been like so yes. I think Glass Hillside is one of the better built tracks in the track listing here. I love the folky intro and the way that it blossoms into a very full and beautiful instrumental palette as it continues. It's very psychedelic, it's very lush. And the song Neighbors also hit me as being a track with some good sonic escapades, but also a sturdy structure as well. And the song Sky Took Hold is a great finisher on the record, really the most epic track on the entire album, like really gives a grand presentation for the end of this thing. At least the album finishes stronger than it started. It's just a really good multifaceted song. I wished more songs in the track listing here got this ambitious with the way that they were built out rather than just building up and trailing off like a pyramid. Overall, I thought this was a decent Grizzly Bear album. In a way, it's like a weird mirror image of their last record. What Shields lacked in sound, this sort of lacks in song. Given there were some tracks that grew on me as I listened to the album more, but still, there are quite a few moments here that really underwhelmed me because the writing was not that impressive. You know, tracks that if you really strip them back to their barest of bones, to their raw acoustics and lead vocal melodies, they wouldn't be that interesting. I'm feeling a decent to strong 6 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. And please don't cry. You're the best. And there's another Grizzly Bear review over here next to my head that you should check out, or click on the link to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video forever.